how to shape and form traditional French baguettes. Bonjour! Shaping and forming steps. Step 1. Divide and fold dough into rectangles. Step 2. Rest dough for about an hour. Step 3. Form rectangles into small logs. And Step 4. Roll logs into baguette shapes. Step 1. Divide dough and fold into rectangles. So now we need to take the dough out of the bowl. We don't want to dehydrate this dough, but we still need flour because we are going to do a little bit of forming and shaping. We're just going to scoop this out. You can use a utensil, your hands. Hands work just fine for me. We don't want to knead it all. We just want to make sure that we have enough flour on our hands that we can sort of pat this out a little bit and have enough on our board to keep it from sticking. So, and I notice I'm not going to knead anything. I'm just going to try to get it into a shape where I can try to do some pretty equal divisions here. Now I'm going to use my scale for this. So we're going to divide this baguette dough to 3 portions, and they're each going to be 300 grams, but I'm using my scale for that. Now a traditional baguette is 350 grams, but I don't have a big enough pan or big enough oven, like a commercial oven, to do those long 22-inch baguettes that are traditional. So I'm going to use a pastry bench cutter here because I find that seems to be just as good. But you've seen me use my serrated knife for cutting dough many times, so that works as well. So I'm just going to do a quick little eyeball of this and try to divide it into thirds. And I'm probably going to have to add dough to it because I may have some pieces that are going to be heavier than others. So I want them to be pretty close to 300 grams. Let's start with this first. See how much I have there. Okay, that's more than 300. Okay, so I'm just going to cut these down a little bit until I get what I know should be 300 grams. So I'm just going to weigh it, try to get as close as I can to 300 gram, and then try to even them out as much as I can. Okay, all 3 of these are almost at 300 grams. All right, so now we need to shape them into rectangles. Again, we don't want to manipulate them too much. So I'm gonna flour a nice little space at the top of my board where I can let them sit, because they're going to rest for like an hour once we form these. You're going to just punch it out just a little bit, push out when you get with those big bubbles, like that's a really big bubble. We should just pop it. So we're going to form it, and we want to keep this in a nice, at least more of a rectangle shape. But if you have an odd side, it's okay, because when we fold it, you can fold it in a little bit more on that side. All right, and then you're going to form this like a letter, and we're going to do this on all 4 sides. So you're going to take one side of your dough. You could use your bench scraper if you want to lift it off of the board, and you're not stretching anything here. It's just basically lifting and folding. Again, this helps create those air pockets that we want to see in that finished product of our dough, of our baguette. Okay, so it's not big folds, but pretty simple folds. And then you take, so it's 2 sides in, and then you're going to take the top, fold it over. Okay, and you're going to take the bottom, use that bench scraper if you need it, and then fold it over so that you have a seam pretty much in the middle. Okay, it's a small rectangle, but it is a rectangle. And so as you can see, that's what it's going to look like. So we're going to flip it over and put it on our board that we have floured. All right, so let's move in with our other one. Let's bring it forward. Again, we don't want to manipulate it much, just patting out some of those bigger air bubbles and getting it into a little bit of a flatter shape to make it a little easier to fold. Again, we're not stretching. We're just folding because we want to get that rectangle. So again, take one side, just going to lift it up and fold it over towards the center. No serious patting or punching down there. Lift up the other side and just fold it over lightly. Okay, so you can see the shape, right? All right, now take the top. Oh, look, another bubble pop in there, forming. Fold it over. Just pat it down lightly, and then take the bottom, fold it over, pat it lightly till you have that seam in the center. Okay, and that gives us a nice rectangle. We're going to flip that over to where the seam's on the bottom, and that's our rectangle. So I'm going to move it to where I have the other one. All right, so all we have left to do now is just cover our baguettes here, the dough, with a towel. You could use plastic wrap if you want. Step 2, allow dough to rest 45 minutes to an hour. We're gonna let these rest for 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll do the final prep and bake them. Step 3, form rectangles into small logs. We're going to make that signature long rope shape. And so we're gonna flour our board. Again, we don't wanna put too much flour in that because we do not want too much flour to get into our dough. So just flour it lightly. If you're afraid of getting too much flour in concentrated places on your board, you could get like a little sifter and then sift slightly the flour so it's more dispersed and it's not concentrated in one area. So I'm gonna take one rectangle dough and I'm gonna move the others a little out of the way. Oh, they stuck, didn't they? We're going to just slightly pat it out. Again, we just kind of want to get rid of some of the big bubbles. This is a very, very light and airy dough. All right, and we're going to fold one end. I'm using the end that's farther away from me because it's easier to fold towards me. I'm just gonna roll it over. I'm gonna take my fingertips and I'm just going to press the edge down so that it keeps the dough nice and tight. And then we're gonna flip it over one more time to almost the end. All right, so I'm gonna turn around so that you can see it. Okay. Again, using my fingers to kind of tighten that seam down. And now I'm gonna take the edge of my hand and I'm gonna find the middle point of all of this, which is gonna be about right here. So I'm just gonna make, with my hand, the edge of my palm, sort of a little line there, and that's my visual fold line. So then from there, I'm just gonna take it and fold it over. So now it's a nice roll. Then take the palm of your hand and then you're going to make a seam where those two, the top and the bottom dough meet, okay? And this just keeps it from breaking apart. You can hear those bubbles popping as I'm creasing these edges here, okay? So again, this just keeps it from popping open as it's rising. All right, so that's the first part of this. Step 4, roll logs into baguette shapes. So now we're gonna take our hands, we're gonna start in the center and we're just gonna roll the dough out, okay? Because we want to make this about 15 to 17 inches in length. Now, if you are making the baguette doughs with 350 grams and you have a big enough pan and oven for them to cook in, then you want your baguettes to be like 22 inches. But we can't do that because we don't have enough space for ours. So we have 300 grams of dough here. We're just gonna roll it out to about 17 inches and that works for me. To get the ends, we don't want a very sharp pointy end, but a traditional baguette end would be a little bit tapered. So to get that tapered, you're gonna cup your hands and they're just gonna, as you roll the ends, just kind of press down to give a little bit more friction to those ends as you're rolling it. All right, and we're gonna do this for the other two. So for right now, I'm just gonna push this one aside and we're gonna work the other two baguettes. Again, a little bit of flour on our surface.